Part 20, Alien Visits. Listen to a part of the sayings from Spiritual Energies with the topic Alien Visits, by Aljibisa Stojanovic, who transferred the sayings received in deep meditation into the book, Man, Origin and Future. 26,000 years ago, people first came into contact with a civilization that was incomparably more developed than them. It was a civilization of beings, approximately the size of a man, with bodies covered in scales, with one eye and four limbs arranged similarly to arms and legs, with the fact that they could be used both for walking and for work. This civilization originates from a distant planet from the Orion constellation, where the conditions for the survival of these beings ceased to exist, so a small part of them managed to move on in spaceships in search of a suitable atmosphere on other planets. Most of them moved to the nearest planets where their descendants still exist today, while smaller groups started to tour the vastness of the universe, so that in the end, through gradual decadence, these travelers would completely die out. They stayed on Earth twice for several years. In question were the visits of two independent ships. There were several hundred of them on each. The first ship visited the area of today's Tibet, and as they belonged to the humanoids, they tried to accelerate the development of the people of that time. By studying the possibilities of human development, they helped them in the way of lighting and maintaining fire, melting some metals and the roughest forging of axes and weapons, digging caves, tanning animal skins and sewing clothes, growing some plants and domestic animals. It took them more than half a year for people to stop being afraid of them. Their stay of a few years made it possible to accelerate the development of that human civilization of over 10,000 years. All attempts to increase this progress did not bear fruit for the simple reason that the human ability to learn was extremely low. 500 years later, another ship with humanoids landed in Australia, where it also stayed for 7 to 8 years with the basic goal of improving the development of human civilization. The effects were about the same, with the fact that this race showed a greater tendency to progress than the Tibetans. The material traces left by these humanoids disintegrated and disappeared over time. The second visit followed 17,000 years ago, and the visitors were highly developed beings who came to Earth for purely research reasons. During the visit, they paid attention to the inhabitants of Atlantis as potentially the most advanced people on Earth. Their stay lasted about 100 years and managed to leave a deep mark on the development of the people of Atlantis. Like the previous ones, given that they were highly civilized, they did not aspire to teach people their knowledge that was not in accordance with the development of human civilization, but rather researched the directions in which human civilization could develop in the future. On the basis of these theoretical assumptions, they found suitable material discoveries and pointed the inhabitants of Atlantis to them. Thanks to their long stay, they passed on to the natives many advanced methods in building houses, agriculture, cattle breeding, transport, and seafaring. They gave them literacy. It was a picture letter. They wrote books and documents on skin and wood. These creatures did not look like humans, they were most similar to amoebas, about 2 meters tall, which also moved like an amoeba. Their breathing organs were constructed differently, so in order to inhale air, they wore appropriate devices on their heads that looked like helmets. They had one oblong egg-shaped eye on their face. They could pull in food with all parts of their bodies. For the first 5 years, none of the people were allowed to approach them, but by studying people and reading their thoughts, they found ways to attract them through food and various attractions and to get closer to them. After completing the mission, the ship continued its research journey in space. During the next 1,000 years, the people of Atlantis developed exceptionally, so that in the next 2,000 years they would be by far the most advanced civilization on Earth, which, unfortunately, sank and disappeared from the face of the earth in one night. Regardless of the widespread trade of the people of Atlantis, especially with West Africa, 1,000 years later not a single copy of a letter or any other material evidence of the existence of Atlantis has been preserved. These visitors also carried out research in other parts of the earth, so there are some testimonies about their activities, but they based their basic work on the people of Atlantis as the most promising people. After them, there were no more visits to planet Earth by aliens who had a material body. The Treasury of Sacred Knowledge thanks you for your interest, and sends you a lot of spiritual patience and love.